Hi everybody, welcome to Rain Shadows channel, where stories whisper with the rain. Before we begin, make sure everything is ready for a deep sleep. Close your eyes, relax your body, and let your mind drift with each tale. Don't forget to like and subscribe channel so you won't miss the next video. Now come with me into the darkness.
It was a quiet Sunday evening in early November. The kind of cold that makes the windows sweat and the floorboards creak just a little louder. I had just finished dinner and was setting up my laptop for the weekly family Zoom call, a tradition we'd started during lockdown and somehow kept going, long after things returned to normal. That night was special. It was my mom's birthday, and since she lived in another state, the family had decided to throw her a surprise Zoom party. Everyone had agreed to dress up, prepare a drink, and show up with a story or memory about Mom. It was supposed to be fun, light-hearted, nostalgic, harmless. By 8:03 p.m., most of the squares on the screen were filled in. My cousin Rachel was holding up her toddler to the webcam. Aunt Janice was already a glass of wine deep, her laughter echoing through her AirPods. My older brother and his wife were calling in from their dimly lit kitchen. Even Uncle Greg, who hated anything tech-related, had somehow managed to appear in his square, squinting at the camera like it owed him money. The call kicked off like usual. Mom laughed when we all yelled, "Surprise!" and someone played a corny birthday song off YouTube. People shared stories, and I remember feeling strangely warm inside, despite the cold in my apartment. For a brief moment, it felt like the world outside the window, full of headlines, noise, and chaos, was miles away. Just a happy family gathered around a digital campfire. And then it happened. At exactly 8:24 p.m., a new participant joined the call. A soft ding sounded and a blank black square appeared in the bottom row. Nothing unusual except for the name under it, David M. I stared at the screen, unblinking. For a split second, my brain didn't register what it was seeing. Then it hit me like a punch to the chest. David Mitchell, my uncle, my mom's younger brother. The same man who had died 5 years ago in a car crash on Route 16. There had been no survivors. I remembered the funeral clearly, how my mom couldn't stop sobbing, how Uncle David's casket had been closed. I blinked hard, thinking maybe someone had accidentally renamed their screen. "Is someone messing around?" I typed in the chat. No one replied. The square stayed black. No video, no audio, just the name, David M. At first I thought it was a prank. Maybe someone in the family had a dark sense of humor, but as I scanned the reactions on the other screens, I could tell no one was laughing. Aunt Janice had gone pale. Rachel had turned her toddler away from the screen. My mom just sat there, frozen, one hand covering her mouth. The air seemed to shift. I noticed the sound of the heater in my apartment had stopped. Everything suddenly felt heavier, like gravity had decided to press down a little harder. Then, without warning, the black square flickered. Just once. A quick, glitchy stutter. Then again. Someone unmuted but said nothing. We all stared, waiting for something, anything, to explain what we were seeing. But nothing could have prepared us for what happened next. The flickering stopped. For a few seconds, the square labeled David M returned to black, still silent and perfectly still, as if whatever glitch we had just seen was over. Someone finally spoke up, their voice small and uncertain. "Could just be a weird connection," said my brother, trying to break the tension, but even he didn't sound convinced. Then it happened. The camera turned on. No warning, no audio cue, no sound of a microphone being activated, just on. The image was wrong. At first, it looked like static, like an old analog TV with poor reception. But slowly shapes began to form, a room, or maybe the outline of one. The lighting was dim, murky, like it was underwater. Everything was slightly distorted, like the lens had been smeared with oil or grease. You could make out what seemed to be wallpaper peeling in the background, stained and yellowed with time. But front and center, staring directly into the camera, was a face. Not Uncle David as I remembered him. This version, this thing, was incomplete. His features were sunken, the skin around his mouth pulled tight as if stretched too far. One eye drooped slightly lower than the other, unfocused. His hair was soaked, hanging in wet strands across his forehead. But the most unsettling part wasn't the face itself, it was the way it moved. Or rather, the way it barely moved. It twitched. The jaw would shift, like it was trying to say something, but the lips didn't quite follow. The eye, just one, kept blinking, slowly out of sync with everything else. It looked like someone had pressed pause on a video and the footage was fighting back. I couldn't look away. None of us could. Then the face leaned forward, just an inch or two, but enough to make the screen fill up with that warped, decaying face. The image stuttered again, just like earlier, a glitchy blur of movement, and suddenly the mouth opened, no sound, just the motion, the lips parting, a hint of teeth, yellowed, cracked, like it was screaming silently, trying to speak from somewhere too far for sound to reach. Then came the worst part. The lights in my apartment flickered. I mean physically flickered. Not on Zoom, not in the feed. My actual ceiling light dimmed and surged like something was draining the electricity. I wasn't the only one. I saw my cousin's camera shake as she fumbled for her lamp. My brother's screen went briefly dark, and then click. The camera for David M. shut off. Gone, just like that. No one said a word for a long moment, not even my mom. Then the name disappeared from the list, like he'd left the call. Aunt Janice finally broke the silence. Did anyone record that? No one had, not even me. I had been too frozen, too horrified to think of pressing a button. We all stared at the screen, the squares of our family still present, still blinking, still human, still alive. But the warmth that had filled the call before was gone, replaced by a vacuum. Something unnatural had pressed itself into our lives just long enough to be noticed. Just long enough to remind us it was still watching, somewhere in whatever place it had gone to. I didn't sleep that night. I tried. God knows I tried. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, counting the seconds as they ticked past midnight. But every time I closed my eyes, that distorted face returned, twitching, half-formed, mouthing something I couldn't hear. I kept telling myself it was a glitch, that someone had spoofed the name, that what we saw wasn't him. Just some horrible coincidence, an accidental screen share from someone in the wrong meeting. But none of those excuses held up. What kind of glitch makes lights flicker in real life? Why did it only appear for us, a small family Zoom gathering? Why did no one recognize the background behind that thing? Except me, because I had seen that room before. 5 years ago, after the crash, I was one of the few who had helped clean out Uncle David's old apartment. I'd stood in that exact room, yellowed wallpaper, the old desk in the corner, the same stained curtain in the background. It was real. It was his room. I tried to brush it off. Maybe someone had gotten access to old photos, faked the whole thing. But for what? A cruel prank? From who? I was still spiraling when around 12:31 a.m. my phone buzzed. A new email. No subject, no sender name, just a single address, d.mitchell.oldroom@gmail.com. I opened it with a lump in my throat. The message contained only one sentence. Why did you stop coming to visit? I stared at the screen, chills crawling up my spine like ice water under my skin. The cursor blinked beneath that sentence like it was waiting for a reply. I didn't write back. Instead, I went to the Zoom app, hoping to find some kind of activity log, something that would show a connection history. But nothing. No one by the name David M. had joined. No recorded participants under that email address. It was like the session had been rewritten, scrubbed clean. At 12:47 a.m., the lights flickered again. Not just a little dimming, a pulse. My monitor shut off and rebooted. My smart speaker glitched and started playing static. I reached for the power strip under my desk, thinking I'd just unplug everything and go to sleep. And that's when I heard the click. The unmistakable sound of a Zoom notification. I turned slowly. My laptop screen was back on. Zoom had opened on its own. There were no meetings scheduled, but one had started. Just one participant, me. And across from me, a blank black square, no name, no video, no mic, just waiting. I sat there breathing as quietly as I could. For a long minute, nothing happened. Then the square twitched, just like before. No name this time. No digital footprint. Just presence. I slammed the laptop shut and backed away, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. I unplugged everything, tossed a blanket over the desk like it could shield me from whatever I'd let in. I slept on the couch that night, lights on, eyes open, waiting for something to knock, or worse, call again. But nothing came. Not yet. The next morning felt like waking up from a coma. My mouth was dry, my eyes burned, and my thoughts came in slow, staggered pieces. The living room was still lit up with every lamp I owned. My laptop sat on the desk across the room, closed, unplugged. But somehow it felt like it was still watching me, like something on the other side of the screen was still waiting. I didn't dare open it. Not yet. Instead, I went for my phone. A message from Rachel had come in around 3 a.m. I can't stop thinking about last night. Did you see that face? I keep hearing things. She'd sent another one after that. My baby woke up screaming. He kept pointing at the closet. Then silence. Other family members had started messaging in the group chat too, but no one brought up the call directly. Everyone danced around it, talking about how weird the internet had been or how strange it was to feel cold all night. Aunt Janice had said she dreamt of being underwater, her mouth open but no sound coming out. It wasn't just me. Something had followed us. Still, I hadn't told anyone about the email, about the second Zoom call, or what I was about to find. By noon, I finally built up the courage to open the laptop again. Nothing strange at first, just my normal desktop. I launched Zoom. No recent calls, no scheduled meetings. But then I saw the folder. It hadn't been there yesterday. On the desktop, a new folder labeled D-Memories. I clicked it. Inside were 23 screenshots. All of them were still frames of our Zoom call from the night before. High resolution, like someone had been screen grabbing the session in real time. Some showed my mom laughing, others showed Rachel holding her son. One was of me, mid-sentence, looking right into the camera. The final image, however, was different. It wasn't from the call. It showed me, asleep on the couch. The photo had been taken from the foot of the couch, looking down at me. Lights on, blanket half fallen to the floor, my phone resting on my chest. I didn't take it. No one in my apartment could have. I live alone. My hands started shaking. I slammed the laptop shut and unplugged it again, yanking cords without care. I stuffed it into the closet and closed the door. But the damage had already been done. That night, as I lay in bed, I stared at the ceiling, just like the night before. I was too scared to sleep. I thought about moving, switching apartments, changing numbers, deleting every app on my phone, but I didn't. Instead, I stayed still, waiting. Then, at exactly 3:16 a.m., my phone buzzed again. No contact, no sender, just one line of text, next time unmute. And that was the last time I joined a family Zoom call. No one talks about it anymore. We avoid the subject like it might summon something. But I still keep the laptop buried in my closet, wrapped in old towels, duct taped shut. I can't bring myself to throw it away. Because sometimes late at night, I swear I hear the soft ding of a new participant joining, even when the screen is off. And I know one day I'll have to answer. I moved into the apartment at the end of October. It wasn't much, just a one-bedroom unit on the third floor of a weathered old building in the outskirts of town. The rent was cheap, the neighbors quiet, and the place had a kind of creaky charm that made it feel older than it looked. I was okay with that. I needed something temporary, a space to be alone. At first, everything was ordinary. I unpacked slowly, getting used to the uneven floors and the way the pipes groaned at night. There was a long hallway just outside my bedroom that led to the bathroom and ended in a blank wall. That wall had a coat rack mounted on it, slightly crooked, as if it had been installed in a hurry. It creaked sometimes when I passed it, but I figured it was just settling. The third week after moving in, I decided to do some deep cleaning. It was a Saturday, cold and grey outside, and I didn't feel like going anywhere. I moved furniture, wiped down the baseboards, even took down a few paintings the previous tenant had left behind. The place felt stale, like it had been holding its breath for years. That's when I noticed it. At the end of the hallway, right where the coat rack used to be, there was a door. A wooden door, faded grey, with an antique brass knob. No signs of new construction, no dust, no scuff marks around it. It looked as if it had always been there. I stared at it for a long minute. My brain tried to make sense of it. I knew with absolute certainty that door hadn't existed yesterday, or the day before, or ever. And yet there it was. I reached out, hand trembling slightly, and gripped the knob. Cold, but not freezing, solid. I turned it slowly. The latch clicked and the door creaked open on hinges that didn't squeal like I expected. Inside was a room I'd never seen. It was larger than it had any right to be, much wider than the floor plan should allow. The walls were bare, painted in a flat grey that seemed to absorb light. The floor was old wood, warped slightly but free of dust or debris. There were no windows, no light fixtures, just the ambient glow from the hallway spilling in. I stepped inside cautiously. The air was still, too still. I clapped once. The sound echoed, longer than it should have. Like the room wasn't finished defining its edges. I stood there, heart beating loud in my ears, waiting for something to feel wrong. But there was nothing, just silence, stillness, emptiness. After a few minutes, I backed out, gently closing the door behind me. I stared at it again, touched the frame, ran my palm along the edges to see if I could find signs of trickery or illusion. There were none. I didn't sleep well that night, and in my dreams I was standing in that room again, but the door had vanished, and the walls were closing in. I woke up just before dawn. The sky outside was still dark, washed in a dull bluish haze. My heart was racing, though I couldn't remember what I'd been dreaming about. Only the feeling of being trapped, watched, something pressing close behind me in a space that didn't belong. Still groggy, I walked down the hallway. But when I got to the end of it, the door was gone. Just gone. The wall was back. Same yellowing paint. Same uneven coat rack hanging slightly to the left, like it had never been taken down. No seam, no outline, no trace of hinges or a frame. My fingers brushed the wall's surface and felt nothing but smooth, cold plaster. I stood there, confused and oddly uneasy. Had I imagined it? I went back to my bedroom and grabbed my phone. Opened the camera roll. Nothing. No photos. No proof. I hadn't thought to take one. Why would I? Doors don't just disappear. Still, I checked the apartment map the landlord had emailed me when I first moved in. Pulled it up on my laptop. The hallway ended in a solid wall, exactly like it did now. No extra room. No weird extension. Everything lined up. Everything normal. But it wasn't. That afternoon, I knocked on the apartment next door. An older man answered. Mr. Fleming, I think he said his name was. I asked if he'd ever seen anything strange around the building. Rooms added. Doors moved. He blinked at me for a few seconds, then gave a dry chuckle. You asking about that hallway? I froze. What about it? He leaned in a little. Don't spend too much time at the end of it, he said, voice low. You hear anything weird, just ignore it. And don't go poking around if something's there that shouldn't be. Then he shut the door. That night, I kept walking down the hallway. I wasn't even trying to. My body just pulled itself toward it. Every few hours I'd get up from whatever I was doing, watching TV, eating, brushing my teeth, and find myself standing in front of that wall. I started to listen. That's when I heard it. A faint knock, once, then silence, then a minute later, again, a soft, hollow sound like knuckles tapping on old wood. I pressed my ear to the wall. At first, nothing, just the blood rushing in my own ears. Then, so faint I thought I imagined it, came a voice, whispering. I couldn't make out the words, but it sounded like it was coming from inside the wall. Not behind it, from inside. The tone was low, like someone murmuring a secret in reverse, a sound that didn't want to be heard and yet needed someone to hear it. I backed away, my skin crawling. The coat rack creaked behind me. That night I left every light on in the apartment. Still, around 3 a.m. I woke up and found myself standing in the hallway again. I didn't remember getting up, didn't remember opening the bedroom door. Just me, and the wall, and the faint sound of breathing on the other side. I started avoiding the hallway. It felt stupid, honestly, a grown man afraid of a blank wall. But every time I passed it, even for a second, I felt a tightening in my chest, like something just out of view was waiting for me to stop and look. Like if I let my eyes linger too long, the wall might change again, and maybe that's what it wanted. The whispering never really stopped, not entirely. During the day, the apartment was silent, ordinary. But once the sun dipped behind the hills and the sky turned black, the noise would begin again. Quiet at first, like wind beneath the floorboards, then more distinct. Knocks, always in threes, then a pause, then whispers crawling beneath the drywall like veins of smoke. Never quite clear, never quite loud, but undeniably there. I recorded it one night just to prove I wasn't losing it. I set my phone down by the wall before bed and left it recording for an hour. When I played it back the next morning, I nearly dropped the phone. The first 20 minutes were nothing. Faint creaks, normal house sounds, but then soft breathing, rhythmic. Then a voice, just barely audible. Come back. That's all. 2 words spoken in a slow rasp. I replayed it 10 times before I stopped. I didn't want to know if there were more words I had missed. I didn't want to know if the voice said my name. I deleted the recording, then turned the phone off and left it face down for the rest of the day. That night, I dragged my bed into the living room and slept with the TV on, volume low, just enough to drown out whatever might creep through the walls again. I dreamed I was inside that grey room. But this time, I wasn't alone. There was a shape in the corner. Not moving, not speaking, just watching. I never saw its face, only the outline. A silhouette too tall for a normal person. Its arms too long, fingertips almost grazing the floor. And in the dream, I couldn't move, couldn't scream. Just frozen there as it inched toward me, one impossible step at a time. I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat. The TV had turned off. I hadn't set a timer, and from the hallway, I heard the coat rack creak, just once. I didn't go to work the next day, didn't answer calls. I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee I didn't touch, just staring at the hallway, waiting for the door to come back, praying it wouldn't. By nightfall, the air in the apartment felt heavier, like something had seeped through the walls and filled the space behind me. Then the whispers started again. Not from inside the wall this time, from inside the room. I don't mean that metaphorically. The sound was coming from behind me near the couch, then the kitchen, then the bathroom door, like it was moving, like it had gotten in. I turned every light on, and still the whispers got louder, no longer indistinct, no longer slow. They were calling, repeating something over and over. Open the door, open the door, open the door. I moved out the next morning, didn't even pack properly, just threw what I could into a suitcase, left the rest behind. I told the landlord the heating was broken and the building was making strange noises. He barely looked up from his paperwork, just shrugged and said, "You wouldn't be the first." That sentence stayed with me. I found a new place across town. Brighter, newer, white walls, windows that actually opened, people laughing in the hallway instead of whispering through the walls. It felt safe, artificially so, but I told myself I just needed time. A few nights of real sleep. Some distance, some logic, and for a while it worked. The first week passed without incident. I didn't hear knocking, no whispering, no dreams of grey rooms or shadows in corners. I even convinced myself it had been stress, that my mind had played tricks on me, but the truth never leaves for long. On the 9th night, just as I was brushing my teeth, the bathroom light flickered. Once, then again, then the air shifted. It's hard to describe. Like the atmosphere around me had thickened, charged with something unseen. I stood still, mouth full of toothpaste, waiting, hoping it was nothing. That's when I heard it. 3 knocks. Not on the front door, not on the wall, but from inside the bathroom mirror. I backed away slowly, heart pounding, toothbrush still in hand. The mirror looked normal, no cracks, no fog. But I knew that rhythm, that pattern. I'd heard it too many nights before. Then came the whisper. "Found you." I slept in the hallway outside my unit that night, under fluorescent lights, wrapped in a coat. It didn't matter. The next day I noticed something even worse. At the end of the hallway in my new apartment, where there used to be a blank wall, there was now a door. Same grey wood, same antique brass knob. It hadn't been there when I moved in. I would have noticed. I didn't go near it. I didn't touch the handle. I sealed the hallway with a bookshelf, stacked every piece of furniture I could find in front of it. Told myself it wasn't real, that it couldn't follow me, that I had left it behind. But the knocks came anyway, some nights soft and patient, other nights angry. The dreams returned too, always the same room, but now it was expanding, growing larger each time I saw it. More doorways branching off, corridors looping endlessly, and something walking just out of sight. Always watching, always getting closer. I haven't been back to the old apartment, haven't spoken to anyone in the building. Part of me wants to ask if they've seen the door, if it's still there, if someone else has stepped inside. But I don't, because I know the truth now. The room doesn't need to stay in one place. It doesn't belong to any building. It doesn't exist in walls or floors. It exists in you. It waits, watches, listens. Once you've opened the door, even just once, it remembers. And no matter where you go, how far you run, how many lights you leave on at night, eventually it opens again. It started on a Wednesday. I remember because I had an early client meeting that day, and I was already stressed about waking up on time. But I didn't need to worry. My phone decided to help me in its own unusual way. At exactly 4:04 a.m., my alarm went off. Shrill, unexpected, far too early. I hadn't set anything for that time. I always woke up at 7, sharp. I assumed it was some leftover reminder or a sleep app misfiring. Bleary-eyed, I swiped it off and went back to sleep, blaming myself for being careless. The next morning, it happened again. 4:04 a.m., same sound, same screen. This time I was certain I hadn't set it. I checked the clock app, nothing there, no alarm listed. I checked the calendar, reminders, even third-party apps, nothing scheduled. Still, I deleted every possible automation just in case. I even restarted the phone. But the next day, it rang again. 4:04. Every time. Always the same default alarm tone. Radar. Always loud. Always intrusive. It wasn't just annoying, it was starting to feel deliberate. Like something was trying to wake me for a reason I didn't understand. I told myself it was a bug. A glitch. Maybe even a prank, though I couldn't imagine who would go through that much trouble. I lived alone. No smart speakers. No home assistants. No synced family devices. I went through every setting I could think of. Cleared caches, updated the OS, even contacted support. They told me to reset the device, so I did. Factory reset, fresh install, started over like it was a brand new phone. The next night I went to bed feeling satisfied, maybe even smug. Whatever weird ghost in the machine nonsense had been going on, I had crushed it. But the following morning I woke up to that familiar, piercing tone, 4:04 a.m. Except this time, something was different. The screen was lit up, but there was no dismiss button, no stop or snooze, just a solid black screen with 4 white words in the center, "You're not alone." I froze. The sound kept going, looping endlessly. I tried pressing the volume buttons, the power button, even holding down the screen, nothing worked. I had to force a shutdown. When the phone rebooted, everything looked normal. No notifications, no alarms listed, no messages, but my heart was pounding. And for the first time since it all began, I didn't feel like I was just dealing with some tech issue. That day I avoided looking at the phone, left it on silent, turned it screen side down. But the thought of it gnawed at me all day, like a warning I hadn't fully understood. Something had written those words. Not an app, not a system glitch. Something or someone had wanted me to read that message and had made sure I saw it. I didn't know what it meant. Not yet. But I was starting to realize this wasn't just an alarm anymore. It was an invitation. I didn't sleep well that night. Even though I left my phone on silent, face down, on the kitchen table, I still kept waking up every hour. Glancing at the clock, checking shadows in the corners of my room. My apartment had never felt small before, but now every creak of the floorboards, every hum from the fridge sounded like something moving, watching, waiting. At 4:04 a.m., the alarm didn't ring. Instead, my phone's camera turned on by itself. Not the rear one, the front-facing camera. I only know this because I'd left the phone in the kitchen, and as I stumbled out of my bedroom, squinting through the dark, I saw the screen glowing faintly. It was facing me. Camera active. The interface of the camera app open without my touching it. Silent, focused, watching. I stopped halfway down the hall. My blood went cold. The phone shouldn't have been unlocked. It had a passcode, Face ID, everything secure. And yet the screen was on, camera open, no buttons pressed. It was as if it had decided on its own to start filming. But it wasn't just the camera. There was a sound too. Faint. Barely there. I stepped closer and heard it. A low, rhythmic pulse, like breathing. Not mechanical. Not from the device. Human. Slow and measured. Coming not from the room around me, but from inside the phone. I snatched it off the table. As soon as I touched it, the screen went black. Not off. Not dead. Just black. Like the display had been swallowed. I held it in my hands, frozen, as the words slowly faded in, dim white, pixelated, like something written by an old typewriter. "You're looking the wrong way." Then the screen flickered, once, and the camera shutter clicked. No, not the phone taking a picture. It was the sound the app makes when it pretends to take a picture, except I hadn't tapped anything. My fingers hadn't even touched the glass. Then, just like that, the screen returned to normal. Home screen, notifications, battery percentage, no camera app running. I backed away, phone still in hand, and sat on the couch. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, I checked the photo gallery. Nothing new at first glance. Then I found it. One photo, taken at 4:04 a.m. At first, it looked like a dark blur. Too much motion to make anything out clearly. But when I brightened it and adjusted the contrast, the details started to emerge. It was a photo of me, asleep, in bed. But the camera angle didn't make sense. It was taken from above, from the ceiling. My ceiling has no cameras, no mirrors, nothing that could explain the angle. And worse, I wasn't alone in the photo. There was a shadow, a tall, indistinct figure in the corner of the room, partially hidden behind the open bedroom door. No face, no features, just a silhouette. But it was watching me, standing perfectly still. I deleted the photo immediately. Then I deleted the backup. Then I smashed the phone against the wall so hard the screen shattered. But that night at 4:04 a.m, the sound came again. Only this time, it wasn't from a phone. It was from inside the apartment. The next morning, I bought a new phone. Different brand, different account, no data transferred. I didn't even sign into the cloud, just a clean slate. I told myself I was being overly paranoid, letting fear override logic. Weird things happen. Phones glitch, apps bug out, right? I didn't sleep that night either. I left the new phone in the kitchen, turned off. Battery pulled, nothing connected to power. Then I locked my bedroom door, slid a dresser in front of it, and climbed into bed with every light on. At 4:04 a.m, I heard it again. The alarm. Not coming from the new phone, not from the wall or the hallway or even outside. It came from my TV. The screen had turned itself on. No input. Just a glowing blue light, humming faintly, then blinking white. In the middle of the screen, the same 4 words appeared, this time bigger, bolder. You're not alone. And beneath it, in smaller font, why won't you wake up? My chest felt like it was caving in. I couldn't breathe. I didn't move. I just stared as the screen began to glitch, first with static, then with flashes of images. Quick, jagged cuts. Faces I didn't recognize, empty hallways, a staircase leading into pitch darkness, and then my bedroom. My bed, me lying there eyes closed, from a different angle than before. Lower this time, like the camera was crawling toward me. I ran. I didn't think. I just bolted into the kitchen, grabbed the new phone, and slammed out the front door in my pajamas. I sat in my car until sunrise, engine off, door locked, shivering. When I returned to the apartment hours later, everything was off. TV black, lights steady, no evidence anything had happened. Except for one thing. On the dining table sat the new phone, turned on, plugged into the wall. I know for a fact I hadn't plugged it in. There was only one notification on the screen, a single saved alarm, set for 4:04 a.m. The name of the alarm? It's time. I deleted it, of course I did. But when I reopened the clock app, it was still there. I deleted it again, it came back. I factory reset the phone. As it rebooted, I stood there watching with shaking hands. The moment the screen came back to life, before I even touched it, the alarm reappeared. Same time, same name. That night, I left the phone outside. But the alarm still rang. Not from the phone, not from any device. It came from inside the apartment, like a sound stitched into the walls themselves. A shrill mechanical beeping echoing at exactly 4:04 a.m, followed by soft footsteps across the floor, and a voice I didn't recognize, whispering, "You're almost ready." I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Whatever this thing was, whatever had latched onto me, it didn't care what device I used. It didn't need technology anymore. It had found a way in. I decided to stay awake. No more running. No more deleting alarms, smashing phones, or resetting devices. It didn't matter anymore. Whatever this was, it had followed me from app to wire, from screen to wall, from inside the phone to inside my home. It didn't need permission. It was already here. So I made coffee, sat in the center of the living room, lights on, curtains open, phone powered off, battery removed, TV unplugged, laptop stored in a locked drawer, nothing that could ring, nothing that could glow, except the clock on the wall. I watched it tick toward 4:04 a.m. The second hand swept slowly, rhythmically, like the calm before a storm. My breath stayed shallow, my heart beat faster with every passing second. Then, as the clock clicked past 4:03, I felt it, the shift in the air, a low vibration in the floor, like the hum of something arriving or waking up. Then came the sound, not the default alarm tone I'd grown used to. This time it was softer, deeper. A resonant chime, like a bell tolling underwater. distant and close at once, like it came from within my own chest, and layered beneath it a whisper. Not a voice speaking to me, a voice speaking through me. It was saying, "You're ready now." I looked around the room. Nothing moved, no screen lit up, no devices powered on. But something had changed. My bedroom door was open. I hadn't left it that way. I stood, slowly, every instinct screaming at me to run, but I didn't. I walked to the hallway. The shadows were thicker there, like the air refused to hold light. And at the end of the hallway, there was a door. It hadn't been there before. Not in this apartment, not ever. Grey wood, antique brass handle. The exact same door I'd seen in a dream weeks ago. It was waiting. I stepped closer, heart thundering in my ears. The whispers grew louder, not threatening but inviting. Like a chorus just behind the wall, calling me forward, beckoning me to open the door, to wake up. I reached out. My fingers brushed the handle. It was warm. For a long moment, I didn't move. Then I turned it. The door opened silently. What I saw inside wasn't another room. Not exactly. It was an empty void. Dark, endless. Not black, but something darker than black. Like the concept of nothing had taken shape. And somewhere within that void, shapes flickered, shifting, watching, waiting. Then something stepped forward. Not fully formed. Not with a face or name, but it looked like me. A silhouette. Same height, same posture, same movements. It raised its hand and pointed at me. Then it whispered, "Now you know. You've been dreaming." My mouth opened, but no words came out. Behind me, the alarm rang one last time. Sharp, final. I didn't shut the door, I didn't walk away, I stepped inside, and for the first time in weeks I felt stillness. Not fear, not confusion. Just the quiet understanding that I hadn't woken up at 4:04 a.m. I had never fallen asleep. I've lived alone for the past 4 years, in a small ground-floor apartment at the edge of the city. Nothing fancy. One bedroom, old hardwood floors that creak like they're telling secrets, and a large window in the living room that faces the street. It was the window that sold me on the place. During the day, sunlight poured through it like warm honey. At night, it offered a quiet view of passing cars and the occasional late-night jogger. I had installed thick grey curtains the week I moved in. Heavy, lined, meant to block both sunlight and the outside world. They touched the floor, motionless and dependable. Or so I thought. It began subtly, just a soft flutter some nights, not every night, just sometimes. I'd be reading on the couch or scrolling through my phone, and out of the corner of my eye, I'd catch the curtains shift slightly. Not a full sway, just a tremble, like a small breeze had passed through. The problem was, the windows were always closed. Locked, actually. The kind that latch from the inside with a distinct click. No cracks, no air vents nearby, no fans. At first, I thought I was imagining it. A trick of the eyes, a side effect of staying up too late. But one night, curiosity got the better of me. I started checking the time every time it happened. I'd glance at my watch or the stove clock, scribble it down in my notes app. After a few weeks, a pattern emerged, 2:33 a.m. Every time. I thought that was strange, too precise to be random, too consistent to ignore. So naturally I tried to explain it away. Maybe it was vibrations from something, plumbing, or the building settling. Maybe someone upstairs flushed their toilet at the exact same time every night. Maybe it was just in my head. Still, the timing haunted me, and the movement was always the same. A gentle ripple starting at the bottom hem of the curtain. Like something brushing up from the floor. Sometimes it even looked like it was pushing outward, not inward. As if something inside the apartment was reaching toward the window, or away from it. I never opened the curtains. That was the strange part. I couldn't explain why. Not really. I just never did. Day or night. It felt wrong. Like whatever was behind them wasn't supposed to be seen. But I started to feel watched. Sometimes I'd be walking to the kitchen and catch myself glancing at the window reflexively. My eyes would search for movement even when I knew it wasn't time yet. And when it was time, when 2:33 rolled around, I'd sit in silence, staring at the stillness until it shifted again. Just a twitch. Just enough. Enough to make me start sleeping with the hallway light on. Enough to make me start checking the locks more than once. Enough to make me wonder, what would happen if I pulled the curtain back? I decided to record it. Not because I thought I'd capture anything supernatural. Honestly, part of me still hoped it was just something mundane, something mechanical, explainable. A heating vent, vibrations from the road, even rats, anything. I placed a small security camera on the opposite side of the living room, facing the window. It had night vision and motion detection. Nothing fancy, the kind you can buy at a drugstore. I set it to record continuously from 2 to 3 a.m., just to be sure. Then I waited. That night, I didn't stay up. I couldn't bring myself to watch the curtains in real time. So I left the lights off, crawled into bed and let the camera do the watching for me. The next morning, I opened the footage. At first, nothing, just the quiet living room bathed in greenish night vision. The seconds ticked by, uneventful. The curtain hung still, dead air. Then came 2:33 a.m. It began exactly as I'd seen it before, a soft rustle near the base. The hem shifted, barely, then stilled. A few seconds passed, then it twitched again, this time more violently. The curtain flared outward for just a moment, like something had moved behind it, like someone brushing against the fabric from the inside. Then, feet. 2 bare feet, just barely visible beneath the curtain's hem, pale, motionless, positioned as though someone was standing directly behind the fabric, facing the room. My stomach dropped. The feet didn't step forward, they didn't shift, but they twitched, a slow, irregular shiver, like they were spasming. One toe jerked sideways, the ankle bent at a slightly wrong angle, and then they lifted. Both feet rose from the floor, slowly, until they hovered a few inches off the ground, toes pointed downward, body presumably still hidden behind the curtain. No ropes, no shadows, no sign of what was holding them there. Just those lifeless feet, dangling. And then the curtain bulged inward toward the room, as if the figure had leaned forward, still hidden, still twitching, and was now watching the camera. I slammed the laptop shut. My hands were shaking. I sat there for nearly 20 minutes, staring at the wall, willing myself not to look at the window. I couldn't, not yet. Eventually I made myself move, crept into the living room. The curtain was still there, still hanging perfectly still in the daylight, but the fabric looked different now, like it had weight memory. Wrinkles that suggested something had been resting against it, pressing into it, floating in it. I deleted the footage, every second of it, but I couldn't delete the image from my mind. That night, I didn't set up the camera, and I didn't sleep. I sat in the hallway outside my apartment door, listening to the quiet, the occasional groan of the building, and praying I wouldn't hear anything else. I stayed out there until dawn, but even from the hallway, I knew. At 2:33 a.m., the curtain still moved. I lasted 3 more nights. 3 nights of sleeping in the hallway with my back to the wall, the living room door closed, lights on, shoes still on my feet, just in case I needed to run. But by the 4th night, I'd had enough. I was exhausted, paranoid, and angry in a way I couldn't explain. Angry that whatever it was had invaded my home, twisted my routine, pushed me into fear. So I made a decision. I would see it. Not through a camera, not through a screen, with my own eyes. If something was standing behind those curtains, something real, I needed to look it in the face. If it wasn't real, then I'd have closure, maybe even peace. That day, I avoided the apartment until late. Spent hours wandering the city aimlessly, watching crowds, lingering in cafes, trying to delay what I knew was coming. Eventually, I found myself standing outside my own building, keys in hand, staring up at the single window on the ground floor. The curtain didn't move. Not yet. I went inside and turned off all the lights, sat on the couch in the dark, facing the window. My phone glowed with the time, 2:27 a.m. I held it in my lap, screen unlocked, flashlight ready. The room was silent. The kind of silence that feels like it's pressing in on you. Dense, heavy. At 2:33, the curtain moved, exactly on cue. A slow ripple from the bottom upward. The same delicate shudder I'd seen so many times. My mouth went dry. My body screamed at me to run. But I didn't. I stood. Step by step, I moved toward the window. The curtain swayed again. Just a little more this time, like it knew I was coming. When I was close enough, I reached out. The fabric felt cold, much colder than it should have been. My hand trembled as I gripped it. And then, in one motion, I yanked it open. The window was closed, the glass fogged with condensation. But just inches in front of it, suspended midair, was a body. A figure, pale, emaciated, curled unnaturally, dangling without support. Its arms were bent backward, twisted as if its shoulders had been dislocated and reset wrong. The legs hung limp, but the feet twitched like they were trying to walk, even though they had nothing to stand on. Its head was tilted downward, long hair falling over its face, unmoving. But I could feel its attention shift. I could feel it see me. I couldn't move. Then its head jerked, a single, violent motion, like a puppet yanked by invisible strings. The neck cracked, the body spasmed, and the face turned just enough for me to glimpse what was underneath the hair. Eyes. Wide, white, unblinking, like bulbs set in sockets too deep for a human skull. Its mouth moved, but no sound came out. Just a silent gasp, like it was struggling to breathe. No, like it was remembering how. And then it drifted backward, disappearing into the shadow just outside the window. Gone. I slammed the curtain shut and collapsed on the floor. I stayed there until morning. After that, I never opened the curtains again. But every night since, at 2:33 a.m., they move. And sometimes, if I'm too slow to look away, I see the shape behind them twitch. Still hanging, still waiting. I didn't move out right away. I told myself I was being irrational, that what I saw, whatever it was some kind of waking dream. A hallucination brought on by sleep deprivation, fear, isolation. Something I could shake off if I just ignored it long enough. But I couldn't, because it wouldn't let me. Each night after that encounter, the curtains moved more violently. Not a ripple, not a soft sway, but full, sudden jerks, like something behind them was thrashing or trying to tear its way through, always at 2:33 a.m. I started recording again, not with a camera this time, just audio. I didn't want to see anymore. But what I captured chilled me worse than any image ever could. Heavy breathing, wet, gurgling sounds, and once, very faintly, a voice, like air pushed through a throat that hadn't used words in a long, long time. It whispered, "Look at me." I stopped sleeping in the living room, moved my mattress into the hallway and kept the door closed. But even there, behind a barrier of walls and false comfort, I could still hear the fabric rustling. The curtain rings sliding along the rod, the sound of feet brushing the floor, though I knew they didn't touch it. I tried staying somewhere else, friends' motels, even the back seat of my car. It followed me anyway. Sometimes at 2:33 a.m. a curtain in another place would move, a window would creak. Once in a motel miles from home, I woke up and found the shower curtain drawn shut, even though I remembered opening it. I left the apartment for good after that, didn't return, didn't pack, just broke the lease, paid the fee, and disappeared. Weeks passed. The air got easier to breathe again. I stopped waking up at 2:33. I even started to believe maybe it had stayed behind, until last night. I was walking home from the grocery store, passing through a familiar street. I shouldn't have gone that way. I wasn't thinking. My old apartment building came into view. And I made the mistake of looking. The living room window was still there, the same grey curtains exactly as I'd left them, only now they were drawn slightly open for the first time ever, and behind them, eyes. Two white frozen orbs set in a pale face pressed against the glass. It was watching me, not just passively, it recognized me. I froze. For a moment it felt like time folded in on itself. I didn't blink. I didn't breathe. And then slowly, its mouth began to move. It didn't open wide, just enough to form a shape. I couldn't hear it, but I didn't need to. I knew exactly what it was saying. You looked. Now I see you. I ran. Didn't stop until I was home, behind locked doors with every light on. I haven't looked at a curtain since. I keep the blinds drawn tight. No fabric, no movement, nothing to sway or rustle or reveal what waits behind. But tonight, as I write this, something just brushed against the edge of my living room window. There's no wind, and my clock just turned 2:32. I never thought an old music box could haunt me more than any nightmare ever could. It wasn't even supposed to end up in my hands. After my grandmother passed away, most of her things were packed away or donated. But for some reason, this one small, worn-out wooden box had been left behind in a dusty corner of the attic. Maybe nobody wanted it. Or maybe nobody noticed it sitting there, waiting. I only found it because I'd volunteered to help clean out her old house before it was sold. The attic was stuffy, filled with forgotten memories and relics from decades long gone. I wasn't even looking for anything special, but the music box practically called out to me. It sat alone on a cracked wooden shelf, covered in a thin layer of dust, the kind of dust that only settles after years of untouched silence. It was delicate, about the size of my palm, carved with faded floral patterns. A little metal key stuck out from its side, the wind-up mechanism, tarnished with age but still intact. I picked it up and instinctively wound it just once. It resisted at first, stiff and dry from years of disuse, but then the key slowly turned. The sound that came out wasn't beautiful. It wasn't soft or gentle like the music boxes you find in stores today. No, this one played a slow, almost broken melody. The notes wavered like a dying breath. But it was strangely mesmerizing, sad even. I didn't think much of it at the time, just a relic of my grandma's life. A piece of her childhood, maybe. Something she probably loved long ago. So I brought it home. Big mistake. For weeks it sat quietly on the shelf in my bedroom. Sometimes I'd glance at it before going to bed, feeling a strange comfort in its presence, like a piece of my grandmother was still with me somehow. But that comfort didn't last long. The first time it played by itself was subtle. I was working late one night, scrolling through my laptop, the house dead silent except for the occasional creak of the old floorboards. Then I heard it. That song. That fragile, hesitant melody slowly drifting through the room. For a second I froze. Had I wound it earlier and forgotten? Maybe the mechanism was old and delayed somehow? But when I turned to look, my stomach dropped. The key on the side of the music box wasn't moving, no spinning, no winding down, no motion at all. Yet the music played slow and soft, like a whisper from another world. And then it stopped, abruptly, like it had run out of strength. For several long moments the silence returned, and just when I thought it was over, just when I let out a shaky breath, I heard it. A faint giggle, high-pitched, delicate, but so close, like it was right beside me. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Even after the music faded and the tiny laugh dissolved into silence, I just sat there, staring at that stupid little box like it might move again at any second. The logical part of my brain kept trying to explain it away. Old objects creak. Maybe the mechanism was loose. Maybe the sound was just in my head. But deep down, I already knew better. It wasn't just the noise. It wasn't just the music. It was the laugh. That sound didn't belong in my room. It didn't belong anywhere. The next morning, in the harsh, bright light of day, it almost felt silly. The box sat exactly where I left it, silent and still. I even picked it up, inspected it, wound the key manually just to hear the music again. It played like before, slow, fragile, sad. But nothing else happened. No giggle, no whisper, no feeling of being watched. Maybe I'd imagined it after all. Still, something in me refused to keep it in my bedroom. That night, I moved the music box into the living room, far away from where I slept, just in case. It didn't matter. Around 3 a.m., that cursed hour when the world feels too quiet, I woke up, not from the music, from the silence. It was a suffocating kind of silence. The kind that presses against your ears, making your heartbeat sound too loud, your breathing too heavy. Then, there it was again. Faint. Barely there. The melody. But it wasn't coming from the living room. It was coming from right outside my bedroom door. I didn't even want to move. Every instinct told me to stay under the covers, to pretend I didn't hear it. But curiosity, or maybe fear, won. I forced myself to get up, moving as quietly as I could toward the door. I pressed my ear against the cold wood. That's when I realized something even worse. The music wasn't playing normally. It was slower, distorted, like someone was dragging their finger along the keys of a broken piano, and beneath the warped notes, another sound layered underneath. Breathing. Soft, raspy breathing, right on the other side of the door. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen. Seconds? Minutes? It felt like hours. Then knock. A tiny, delicate knock. 3 times. Tap, tap. No strength behind it, just patient, waiting. I backed away slowly, heart hammering against my ribs. I didn't open the door. I couldn't. Eventually the music stopped, and so did the breathing. When I finally worked up the courage to open the door, the hallway was empty. But there, sitting neatly on the floor right in front of my door, was the music box. I had left it in the living room, far, far away. After that night, everything changed. I didn't sleep properly for days. Every tiny sound in the house made me jump. The creak of the floorboards, the hum of the fridge. Even the wind outside scraping against the windows, it all sounded like the damn music box was starting up again. But the worst part, I never touched it again. I didn't have to. The box moved on its own. Sometimes I'd leave it in the living room, come back later and find it in the hallway. Sometimes I'd leave it in the kitchen, wake up and it's sitting quietly at the foot of my bed, like it wanted to be closer, like it wanted me to notice. At first, I thought I was losing my mind. I even set up my phone to record overnight, just to prove to myself that maybe I was sleepwalking, moving it in my sleep. But what I saw on that recording still haunts me to this day. 3:12 a.m. The music box sat completely still in the living room, right where I left it. Then, without warning, it jerked. Not slid, not tipped over. It jerked like something invisible had grabbed it, lifted it slightly, then placed it gently back down. The music started playing by itself, slow and broken like always. But that wasn't the worst part. In the corner of the video, near the doorway leading to the hall, something moved. At first I thought it was a shadow, just lighting trickery or camera blur, but then it leaned in, a shape, small, child-sized, thin arms stretching unnaturally long as if searching for something, searching for me. Its head turned, slow and deliberate, facing the camera. But there was no face, just darkness, an empty void where its face should have been. And then, right before the video glitched into static, I heard it. That giggle, closer than ever, higher pitched this time. Excited, happy. As if whatever it was, knew I was watching, knew I was finally paying attention. The next morning I packed up the music box, wrapped it in layers of towels, stuffed it in a cardboard box, taped it shut. I drove it across town to an old storage unit I barely used anymore, left it there shoved into a back corner beneath piles of junk, out of sight, out of mind. But the fear never really left. Because that night, the very first night without it in the house, I slept like the dead. No music, no laughter, just blissful, perfect silence. Until 3:13 a.m, when my phone buzzed beside me, a notification. From the motion detecting camera I'd forgotten was still recording in the living room. Just one line of text. Motion detected, living room. When that motion alert appeared on my phone, my first reaction wasn't fear. It was denial. There was no way. The music box was gone. I had driven it miles away, locked it inside a metal storage unit, buried it under heavy boxes, left it in the cold, dark silence of that place. I shouldn't be getting motion alerts, especially not from the living room of my own home, but the notification glared back at me like an accusation. Motion detected, living room. Heart hammering, hands shaking, I tapped the video. At first, nothing. The living room looked exactly as I left it, empty, quiet, perfectly normal. But then, in the bottom corner of the frame, something shifted. Not a figure, not a shadow. The air itself seemed to ripple, like heat waves rising from asphalt, except it was cold that seeped from the screen, cold enough to make goosebumps crawl across my skin. And then that sound. Click, click, click. The familiar, metallic sound of the music box key being slowly turned. But there was nothing there. No music box, no visible object, just the unmistakable sound of winding. Deliberate, patient, hungry. The camera glitched for a fraction of a second, just enough to distort the image. And when it cleared, sitting dead center on my living room floor, was the music box. The very same one I had locked away, perfectly still, perfectly silent, waiting. I didn't sleep the rest of that night, didn't move from my bed, didn't breathe more than necessary, because I realized something terrifying. It never mattered where I put that box. It never mattered how far I ran. Whatever it was, whatever had attached itself to that old, innocent-looking thing, it didn't care about distance. It didn't care about locks, or walls, or logic. It just followed, always, silently, patiently. In the days that followed, I did everything people on the internet suggested. Salt circles, prayers. Even reached out to some paranormal expert who told me, in a very calm, very unsettling voice, that what I was dealing with wasn't the box itself. It's not the object, she said, it's the attachment. What do? I asked. Her pause stretched too long. You survive, she finally whispered, or you don't. Now? Now I keep the music box. I don't hide it anymore. It sits on a shelf across my room in plain sight. And every night before I sleep, I say the same thing out loud, stay there. Sometimes I swear I hear a tiny giggle in response, soft, satisfied, as if to say, for now. Most people laugh when I tell them this story. Some say it sounds like a glitch in the Matrix. Others think it's just some random guy who happened to look like me. I wish it was that simple. It all started with a photo. A completely ordinary night. I was lying in bed, scrolling through my phone like any other exhausted human being avoiding sleep. My room was dim, quiet except for the faint hum of my desk fan. Everything about that night should have been forgettable. Until I got the message. It was from a guy I barely knew, an old classmate I hadn't seen in years. We were never close, just followed each other online out of habit. He lived on the other side of the city. The message was short. "Hey man, is this you?" Attached was a photo, and my stomach instantly dropped. The image was blurry, like it had been taken quickly, almost without the subject noticing. It showed a man walking down a street at night. But not just any street. My street. Right outside the convenience store I go to every other night. And that man? He looked exactly like me. Same height, same build, same black hoodie with the faded graphic on the back, same worn-out jeans, even the same cheap sneakers I always wear when I'm too lazy to dress properly. For a second, a very long, cold second, I actually wondered if the photo was of me, but it couldn't have been. That night I was home, in bed, phone in hand. I stared at the photo, heart thudding harder the longer I looked. "Where did you take this?" I typed back, trying to sound casual. "Bro, not me," he replied. "My girlfriend saw this dude while we were driving past your block tonight. She swore it was you, but I told her no way you'd be out this late by yourself, just standing there doing nothing. Doing nothing." That's what chilled me the most. In the photo, the figure wasn't walking. He was just standing there, facing away from the street, facing directly toward my building, right toward my apartment window. I laughed it off in the chat like any normal person would. Haha, yeah, weird, must be some lookalike lol. But inside I felt sick. It didn't feel like some random coincidence. It felt deliberate. Like whoever, or whatever that was, wanted to be seen. Wanted me to know it was there. Watching. Waiting. And in the back of my mind, a thought surfaced that refused to go away. If it looks exactly like me, what else does it know about me? After that night, things didn't go back to normal. If anything, they got worse. At first, I tried to forget about the photo. Really, I did. I convinced myself it was just one of those weird life moments, a freak coincidence. Maybe there was someone out there who just happened to dress like me, walk like me, look like me from a distance. Fine, but then the stories started. Random little comments from people I knew. It started with my downstairs neighbor. We ran into each other in the hallway a few days later. She gave me this odd look, half annoyed, half confused. "Did you lock yourself out the other night?" she asked casually. I blinked. "What?" "Yeah, like, maybe around 2 a.m. I was coming back from my shift and I saw you standing outside the building. You didn't have your keys. Thought it was weird since you didn't say anything." Goosebumps broke across my arms. I hadn't left my apartment at all that night. I told her it wasn't me. She frowned. "Could have sworn it was. You even had that same hoodie on." My stomach turned. Same hoodie. Same me. Same, not me. Then it happened again. Different person, different situation. I was grabbing coffee at a place I go to every morning. The barista smiled like she always did. "Hey, back so soon? Didn't expect to see you twice today." My hands went cold around the cup. "What do you mean?" I asked slowly. "You were just here like an hour ago," she said, laughing. "Ordered the exact same thing too. Guess you really needed the caffeine today, huh?" But I hadn't left my apartment all morning. No coffee run, no early errand, nothing. Someone or something was out there, walking around in my clothes, visiting my places, moving like me, acting like me, living my life. The final straw came a few nights later. I was walking home from work, late shift, empty streets, nothing unusual, until I passed an alleyway near my block. And I felt it. That unmistakable sensation, the primal ancient instinct that someone is staring at you. I slowed down, turned, and there it was, me. Standing at the mouth of the alley. Same black hoodie, same jeans, same face. Except it wasn't moving. Not walking toward me, not away. Just standing perfectly still. Head slightly tilted. Watching, studying, learning. It didn't wave, it didn't blink, it didn't even breathe. Just stared, like it was waiting for something, waiting for me. And in that frozen moment, staring at myself, staring back, a terrible thought lodged itself deep in my brain. If it was learning how to be me, What happens when it no longer needs me around? I couldn't sleep after that. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it, standing there, watching, waiting. I kept telling myself I had two choices: ignore it and hope it goes away, or confront it. But deep down, I already knew. Things like this don't just go away, especially when they're this close, especially when they know where you live. The next night, I made up my mind. I wasn't going to wait anymore. Whatever this thing was, I had to see it up close. I had to know what I was dealing with. So I waited until dark. I dressed exactly like I normally did. Hoodie, jeans, sneakers. The exact same look that thing had copied. Not because I wanted to match it, but because I wanted it to notice me, to come find me. I walked the streets around my block for over an hour. Every shadow felt too sharp, every sound felt too loud. The city felt empty, like I was walking through some hollow version of my own world. And then I saw it. At the far end of the street, me, just standing there. Still. Wrong. This time I didn't freeze. I walked straight toward it. Closer, closer. And as I got closer, I noticed things. Things I hadn't seen from a distance. The way its hands hung at its sides, too stiff, too perfect. The way its posture copied mine, but like a bad actor mimicking a role. The skin looked like skin, but flat, lifeless. Like wax stretched over bone. Its hoodie wasn't just similar, it was identical. Every faded spot, every loose thread, exactly like mine. Except, it didn't blink, it didn't breathe. Not until I was only a few feet away. And then, slowly, it lifted its head. And I saw its face. My face. But empty. No eyes, no mouth, just smooth, pale skin where features should have been, like someone started sculpting me from clay but never finished. And worst of all, as I stood there, frozen in pure animal terror, the thing smiled. Not with lips, not with teeth, but the skin of its face stretched, pulled unnaturally, horribly upward, forming the shape of a smile, as if it was learning, as if it was practicing, trying to figure out how to look human, how to look like me. And then, without a sound, it turned. Walked slowly backward, into the shadows, gone. Leaving me standing there under the streetlight, shaking harder than I ever have in my life. But that wasn't the worst part, because when I got home, heart still hammering, sweat soaking through my shirt, I found something waiting for me on my doormat. A small dirty scrap of paper, no words, just a rough childlike drawing. 2 stick figures, standing side by side, identical. And underneath them, a single line, scrawled like it was written by someone just learning how to hold a pen, soon. After that night, everything felt wrong. I wasn't just scared anymore. I was paranoid. I started looking over my shoulder constantly, checking every window, every mirror, every reflection, wondering, was it out there right now? Watching me from some alleyway? Following me in my own shadow? Or worse, was it already closer than I thought? Days passed, nothing happened, no sightings, no strange messages, no photos from friends. It was almost enough to make me wonder if I'd dreamed the whole thing. My mind grasped at anything to make sense of what I'd seen. Stress, lack of sleep, maybe even some kind of breakdown. But the paper drawing, that crude, childlike sketch, I still had it, folded up, hidden in my desk drawer. Real, solid, proof. Proof that I wasn't crazy. Proof that it was real. Then one night, maybe a week later, I was walking home again. Same route, same empty streets. And for the first time in a long time, I let my guard down just a little. I told myself it was over. Maybe whatever that thing was had lost interest. Maybe it had moved on. And that's when I saw it. Not outside, not in the alley, not standing under a streetlight. I saw it in my window. My bedroom window. From the street. 3rd floor up. Far too high for anyone to reach. But it was there, a figure, motionless, watching me from inside my own apartment. I ran like hell, heart in my throat. I took the stairs 2 at a time, fumbling with my keys, hands shaking so badly I could barely fit them into the lock. When I finally burst through the door, silence, empty, dead quiet. But something felt off, like the air had weight, like I wasn't alone. I walked slowly toward my bedroom. The door was open, just a crack. I pushed it wider, and there, on my bed, laid something small. Another scrap of paper, another drawing. This time, 3 stick figures, 2 standing side by side, identical, and a 3rd one, lying down, crossed out. I left that night, didn't pack, didn't look back. I don't live there anymore. But sometimes, even now. When I check my phone late at night, I'll see new follower requests from blank profiles, no posts, no names, just a profile picture. A blurry street photo, a photo of me, standing outside alone. Except I swear, I haven't been outside that night. Not yet. Moving into a new apartment always feels strange. There's this in-between period where nothing quite feels like home yet. The walls don't know you. The floorboards creak like they're warning you. The air smells like someone else's life, recently erased. But I never expected the silence to break like this. I moved into that apartment about 6 months ago. It wasn't fancy, not expensive. A small, slightly worn-down unit in an old building just outside the city centre. The kind of place you rent when you're tired of roommates but not quite ready for something better. Still, it was mine. My space. My peace. Or at least, that's what I thought. The first night was quiet. Empty apartment. Mattress on the floor. A couple of unopened boxes. The sound of the fridge humming in the background like a lazy heartbeat. Around 2 a.m. I was half asleep when I heard it. Faint. Far away. Soft. Baby crying. Not screaming, not desperate, just crying. Little broken sounds, the kind that pull instinctively at something inside your chest, even if you don't have kids, even if you've never held a baby in your life. My first thought was neighbours. Maybe thin walls. Maybe someone had a newborn nearby. Annoying, sure, but nothing unusual. I pulled a pillow over my head and forced myself to sleep. The next night I heard it again. Same time, same fragile little sobs. But this time, it sounded closer. I sat up in bed, heart thudding a little harder. I strained to listen. Nothing. Silence. Then, another tiny cry. This one sounded like it came from the wall beside me, right next to my bed. I froze. That didn't make sense. Behind that wall was the hallway. Not another apartment, not anyone's bedroom, just cold, empty space. Over the next few days, I tried to shrug it off. Told myself old buildings do weird things with sound. Pipes rattle. Vents whistle, neighbours argue, but it kept happening. Always around 2 or 3 a.m, always the same sound, that same little baby's cry, soft, lonely, like it wasn't even trying to be loud, like it just wanted someone, anyone, to notice. Then something happened that pushed everything from weird to wrong. I was checking my mailbox downstairs when the old woman from 402, sweet, always smiling, struck up small talk. "Settling in all right?" she asked. "Trying to," I laughed nervously. She leaned in slightly, almost like she was sharing a secret. "You expecting?" she said casually. I blinked. "Sorry," she nodded toward the ceiling, toward my apartment. "Thought maybe you were pregnant. I keep hearing a little baby crying from up there at night. Thought it was yours." My stomach went cold. I forced a weak smile. "No, I live alone." The woman paused. Her smile faltered, just a little. Then she whispered, almost like she regretted asking at all, "Oh!" I didn't sleep well that night. Not just because of the crying, but because, for the first time, I noticed something new. Little marks on the wall near my bed. Faint, almost invisible unless the light hit just right. Small, too small. Like tiny handprints, pressed flat against the wall, right beside where I sleep. After that night, I couldn't unsee them. The tiny handprints. At first, I thought I was imagining it. Tricks of the light, old stains. Something left behind from whoever lived here before me. But the more I looked, the more impossible they became to ignore. They were too small, too perfect. Fingers spread wide like a child pressing their hands against glass. But they weren't on glass. They were on the wall, faint, dusty, smudged like they'd been there a long, long time, but fresh enough that they almost looked new. And the worst part? There were more than just one or two. As I moved around the bedroom, looking carefully like a detective in my own damn apartment, I found them everywhere. Near the floor, near the corners, high up where a baby could never reach on their own. As if whatever left those prints hadn't just been crawling along the wall, it had been climbing. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because of the crying, though that came too, right on schedule, but because for the first time since moving in, I felt watched. Really, truly watched. Like the second I closed my eyes, something would press its tiny hands against the other side of the wall. And wait. Wait for me to notice. Or worse, wait for me to stop noticing. The next day, I went hunting for answers. I talked to neighbours, asked casual questions. Most of them had nothing strange to say. Old building, noisy pipes, maybe there were thin walls after all. But then I found her. Mrs. Alder. Apartment 405. She'd lived in the building longer than anyone, probably since it was built. When I asked her about the crying, she didn't look surprised. She didn't laugh. She didn't even hesitate. Instead, she gave me this long, tired look. "Your unit? 403, right?" I nodded. "That room's always been odd," she said carefully. "Quiet for years, then noisy, then quiet again." She looked down at her hands. "Most folks don't stay long." I pressed her for more, and that's when she told me. Years ago, maybe a decade, maybe more, a woman had lived in my unit, alone, pregnant. She rarely left the apartment, never had visitors. And then, one day, she was just gone. No moving trucks, no goodbye, just gone. People thought maybe she left town, but Mrs. Alders swore she remembered one thing above all else. She was talking to herself a lot near the end, she whispered, talking like there was a baby in there with her already. My blood turned to ice. "What happened to the baby?" I asked, barely breathing. Mrs. Alder's face darkened. "There was no baby," she said softly. "There never was." That night, knowing all that, I lay in bed staring at the wall, staring at those faint little handprints, and for the first time, I heard something new. Not crying, not sobbing, but laughter. Soft, gurgling, high-pitched, a baby's laugh, right beside my ear, right on the other side of the wall. I couldn't stay in that bedroom anymore. Not with the handprints, not with the crying, not with that awful, hollow baby's laughter. For a few nights, I slept on the couch in the living room. Or tried to, anyway. Every creak in the building felt like tiny footsteps. Every gust of wind felt like a breath against my neck. But deep down, I knew it didn't matter where I slept. It was still there, waiting, watching, wanting. Eventually, curiosity won out over fear. That's the thing about being alone too long with something unexplainable. Your brain stops asking if something is real and starts asking why. Why me? Why here? Why this room? I kept staring at the wall beside my bed, the one covered in those tiny handprints, old paint flaking in spots, thin, too thin maybe. And for the first time, a horrible idea crept into my head. What if there was something inside? Not a ghost, not a spirit, something physical, hidden, forgotten, left behind. I bought tools, not just a cheap utility knife and a small hammer from the hardware store down the street. And one night, heart in my throat, I started cutting. Slow, careful, peeling the layers of that wall like skin. At first it was nothing, just plaster, dust, empty space. But then, I found them. Marks, deep scratches in the wood beneath the wall, tiny, chaotic. Like little hands had clawed desperately at the inside. Like something or someone had tried to get out. The air grew colder the deeper I cut, dry, stale, rotten. And then, right near the bottom corner, I saw something that made me almost drop the knife. A single, perfect handprint, pressed into the old wood. Not painted, not drawn, burned, as if tiny scorching hot fingers had left their mark. And scrawled beneath it, scratched so violently into the surface that the wood splintered, was a single word, Mama. That's when I heard it, behind me. Not crying, not laughing, but breathing, right there, right at my back. Short, shallow, wet little gasps, like a newborn struggling to fill tiny lungs. I didn't dare turn around, couldn't. I just stood there, frozen, as the breathing grew louder, closer, right beside my ear. And then, as if satisfied, it stopped. Silence, utter, perfect silence. I patched the wall back up, not because I wanted to, but because whatever was on the other side didn't want me looking anymore, didn't want me knowing. And I wasn't brave enough to fight that. Not alone, not here. But that night, before I finally drifted into an exhausted, terrified sleep on the couch, I heard one last thing, a whisper. So faint I thought I dreamed it, but so clear I still remember every syllable, right beside my ear, right against the wall. Mama, stay. I moved out 2 weeks later. I told myself I was doing it for my sanity, for my safety, for sleep. But the truth was much simpler. I was scared. Really, deeply, helplessly scared. Not just of the crying, not just of the laughter, not even of the tiny handprints that still sometimes appeared no matter how many times I scrubbed the walls. No. I was scared because I realized something terrible. Whatever was in that apartment wasn't angry, wasn't violent. It was lonely. And loneliness like that doesn't let go easily. I didn't tell the landlord the real reason I was leaving. What could I even say? Hey, by the way, your walls have a baby in them. I packed light, left furniture behind, left some clothes, left everything that might have absorbed even a little piece of it. I just wanted distance, space, silence. The first night in my new apartment was empty. Blessedly, beautifully empty. No crying, no laughter, no handprints. I slept with the lights off for the first time in weeks. It almost felt like freedom. Almost. Until I checked my phone, just before bed. A message request from a stranger. No name, no profile picture, just one line of text. "Hi, was this yours?" Attached was a photo, fuzzy, taken in the dark, a plain wall. A tiny, perfect handprint smeared across it. Underneath, scratched faintly into the paint, was a word. One I recognized all too well. Mama. I stared at that photo for a long time, longer than I should have, and then I did something I still regret. I replied. "Where is this?" A few seconds later, a response came. 403. My old apartment, my old wall, my old nightmare. Weeks passed. I tried to push it from my mind, told myself it was over, told myself it was someone else's problem now. But sometimes, very late at night, when the world is quiet, when I'm half asleep, I swear I hear it. Faint, fragile, somewhere impossibly close. A soft little laugh, a baby's laugh. Right beside my ear, right at the wall, like it never really left, like it never really needed to. My name is Liam, and this was supposed to be a good memory, a peaceful getaway. A little cabin in the woods, 3 days with Emily, no emails, no notifications, no noise, just silence, nature, us. That was the plan. It started with burnout. I'd been working crazy hours, freelance design jobs, endless revisions, late-night deadlines. At some point, I just stopped feeling like a person. So I booked this place. It looked perfect online. Secluded mountain cabin with rustic charm. No Wi-Fi, no cell service. Total peace. Exactly what we needed. We arrived on a Friday afternoon. The drive up was long, winding dirt roads, trees pressing in from both sides, that strange quiet you only get far away from everything. The cabin sat alone at the edge of the woods. Old but well kept. Wooden porch, rocking chair. A small sign above the door. Welcome, stay a while. Inside it smelled like cedar and dust. Cozy, warm, safe. There was a little guest book sitting on the shelf near the window. The kind where past visitors leave notes. Reviews, memories. I flipped through it while Emily unpacked. Most of it was cute stuff. Best weekend ever. Beautiful sunsets. Saw deer from the window. But then I noticed something weird. The last entry was from 4 months ago. Way longer than expected for a popular Airbnb like this. Their note was short, simple, but strange. Great place, very peaceful, but I kept hearing knocking at night. Just that. No explanation, no joke, no smiley face, just knocking. I remember laughing to myself. Probably animals, right? Squirrels, raccoons, trees moving in the wind. Old cabins make noise. That's just part of the vibe. I closed the book and forgot about it. That night, Emily and I sat out on the porch until late, drank cheap wine, watched the stars, talked about stupid things. It was one of those rare nights where life actually felt simple, easy, happy. We went to bed early. It was so quiet up there, I swear I could hear my own heartbeat. Emily fell asleep almost instantly. Me? I lay awake for a while, staring at the wooden ceiling, listening to the soft creaks of the old cabin settling, listening to the wind outside, listening. And then I heard it. Knock. Soft, gentle. Not from the front door, not from outside, from inside, from somewhere upstairs. 3 slow, spaced-out knocks. Like someone or something was politely letting me know, hey, I'm still here. The next morning, I told myself I'd imagined it. That's what your brain does when you're alone in the woods. It creates sounds, echoes, ghosts of nothing. Besides, Emily hadn't heard a thing. She was cheerful at breakfast, making coffee, humming to herself, talking about hiking later. So I let it go, mostly. We spent most of that day outside. There was a little trail behind the cabin, nothing serious, just soft dirt paths winding between the trees. It was beautiful out there, quiet in a way that felt almost too big. But even surrounded by nature, I kept glancing back at the cabin, kept thinking about that knock and the words in the guest book. Knocking at night. That second night, it happened again. Exactly at 3 a.m. Knock, knock, knock. 3 slow taps, but this time closer, more deliberate, almost practiced. Like whoever was doing it had all the time in the world. Emily stirred beside me, sat up. Did you hear that? I nodded. Neither of us moved. Neither of us wanted to. Because here's the thing. We were in a cabin in the middle of nowhere. But that knock? It didn't sound like the woods. It didn't sound like some animal scratching. It sounded human. Polite. Patient. By the third night, the knocking wasn't the worst part. It was the footsteps. Soft, slow, on the wooden floor upstairs. But here's the thing, there was nothing upstairs. The cabin had a tiny loft area above the main room, just storage space. No furniture, no beds, nothing. Yet we could hear them. Soft steps, pacing, turning, stopping right above us. Then the creak of the old wooden rocking chair on the porch, moving slowly, back and forth, even though neither of us had touched it. We were supposed to check out the next morning, but I wasn't waiting that long, not after what we found next. See, the cabin had an old security camera pointed at the front door. Just one. A leftover from the owners, probably. It fed directly to a little monitor near the kitchen. That night, around 3 a.m., right after the knocking stopped, I checked it, and what I saw still makes my skin crawl. There was someone standing outside, facing the window, facing us, not moving, not knocking, just standing there, head tilted slightly, watching. Emily clutched my arm so hard I thought she might break skin. Who is that?" she whispered. But I didn't have an answer. Because the camera ran all night, it recorded everything. And when I played it back the next morning, that person, that figure, never left by the front door, never walked away, never moved toward the woods. They just vanished. The worst part, that same night. While I was packing in a panic, I found something I hadn't noticed before, a small carving. Scratched deep into the underside of the wooden table. 5 words, old, rough, desperate. He never leaves this place. We should have left right then, right after reading those words carved into the table. He never leaves this place, but we didn't. Because somehow, fear doesn't always make you smart. Sometimes it makes you curious, stupidly, dangerously curious. Emily wanted to go, right away. She was already stuffing clothes into her bag, shaking so hard she could barely hold the zipper. But me? I kept thinking about that guest book, that last entry. I kept hearing knocking at night. I needed to know who wrote it. Needed to know if they made it out. While Emily packed, I flipped back through the pages of that old guest book. Most entries were sweet, normal, harmless, until I noticed something strange. Some pages were torn out. Not just 1 or 2, a lot. Whole sections missing, like someone didn't want their words read or their warning seen. But they missed one, stuffed between 2 newer pages. An older, nearly faded entry, short, panic-scrawled in messy handwriting. Day 1, beautiful cabin, feels peaceful. Day 2, woke up to knocking, thought it was animals. Day 3, he's watching from the loft. Day 4, I think, he sleeps during the day. Day 5, if you're reading this, don't stay a 5th night. We were supposed to leave after night 3. This was night 3, and someone had been watching us from the loft, the empty loft. I looked up at the ceiling, at the old wooden boards above our heads, at the tiny square opening to the loft space we hadn't dared to check. And in that moment I realized something horrible. The footsteps we'd been hearing, the breathing sounds at night. They weren't echoes. They weren't ghosts. They weren't outside. They were above us, in the loft, in the same house, in the same space. Maybe sleeping, maybe waiting, maybe not human at all anymore. Emily grabbed my arm. "Liam," she whispered. Her voice broke. I turned. She was staring at the ladder to the loft. At the trapdoor. It was open. Not wide, just enough. Just enough for someone to look down, just enough for someone to watch. And I swear, I saw fingers, thin, pale, curling just barely over the edge. Still, silent, patient. That was it. No more curiosity, no more waiting. We bolted. Ran for the car like hell itself was behind us, didn't look back. Didn't grab the rest of our things, didn't even lock the door. We just drove, down that dark, winding mountain road, until the cabin, and whatever still lived inside it, was far, far behind us. But even hours later, even when my hands finally stopped shaking, even when I thought we were safe, my phone buzzed, a new message, from the Airbnb app, from the cabin owner. Just 2 words. He's still there. We never went back for our stuff. Clothes, food, Emily's jacket, my favorite hoodie. Didn't care. We left it all behind. Because honestly, after that night, it felt like the cabin owned it now. Owned everything we touched. Owned us for a little while. And maybe that was enough for him. We drove straight back to the city. Didn't talk much on the way down. Didn't really need to. The image was burned into both of our minds. Those fingers. Those impossibly still fingers curling just barely over the edge of the loft opening. He wasn't trying to attack us. He wasn't chasing us. He was just watching. like he'd done to every guest before, like he'd do to every guest after. I didn't leave a review, didn't write a warning, didn't even report the listing. I couldn't explain it, not properly. And besides, the next day when I checked Airbnb, the cabin was gone, delisted, like it had never existed. I thought that was the end of it. It should have been. Until about a week later, middle of the night. City noise outside my window, safe sounds, normal life. But I couldn't sleep, still haunted by little things, the way floorboards creak at night, the sound of wind moving past windows, the sensation, that terrible crawling sensation, of being watched, even when you know there's no one there, right? That's when the email came. Not a message, not a notification, an actual email, from a weird scrambled address I didn't recognize. Subject line, forgot something. No message body, just a single attachment, a photo. My heart nearly stopped. It was taken inside the cabin, inside that cabin, the same little wooden table, the same angle, the same carving. He never leaves this place. But there was something new in the photo, something that hadn't been there before. A little object sitting on the table, my hoodie, folded neatly, like an offering or a souvenir. That night I barely slept, but somewhere in that strange, empty space between dreams and panic, I heard it. Not close, not loud, but there. Knock, knock, knock. Not on my apartment door, not on the window, but inside my head, inside my memory, like a reminder, like a promise. Soft, patient, waiting. He never leaves. Maybe not the cabin, maybe not the woods, but once you've been there, once he's seen you, a part of him never really lets go. My name is Ethan, and for most of my adult life I've been a night walker. Not the dramatic kind, just a guy who can't sleep. I work in IT, long hours, staring at screens until my eyes burn. My apartment's small, always a mess, always too quiet at night, so walking became my routine. After midnight, when the world calms down, I grab my hoodie, my headphones, and just go. And my path is always the same, down 3 blocks across the main road, into the old public park that barely anyone visits anymore, especially not after dark. It's not that the park is creepy, really. More, forgotten. The trees are overgrown. The lamps flicker more than they glow. The walking path is cracked and scattered with fallen leaves no one bothers to sweep. But I like it. Feels like my space, my version of peace. There's this one bench, that bench. Old wood, faded green paint peeling off in long curls, rusty iron arms curled like old tree roots. It sits alone in the far corner of the park, right next to the duck pond nobody maintains, facing nothing but dark water and shadows. Most people probably walk right past it, but I always noticed it. Always thought it looked kinda lonely. Maybe that's why I started nodding at it every time I walked by. A dumb habit, little salute, just me being weird. Weeks passed like that, routine, normal, safe, until last Tuesday. That's the night everything changed. It was later than usual, past 2 a.m. The park was dead silent except for the soft crunch of my footsteps on the path. As I neared the corner, nearing that bench, I reached up, already half grinning to myself, ready to give it the usual nod like some late-night ritual, and that's when I heard it. Soft, gentle, clear, right beside me. A whisper. Sit here. I stopped walking instantly. Cold spread across my back like ice water poured down my spine. I pulled out my headphones, convinced maybe I was losing it. Maybe I left a podcast running. Maybe it was a glitch in a song. But my phone was silent, dead quiet. And that voice, it hadn't come from my headphones. It hadn't come from anywhere around me. It had come directly from the bench, like the old wood itself had leaned toward me and spoken, inviting, patient. Sit here. I didn't sit down that night. I just stood there, frozen, staring at that old bench like it had personally offended me. The whisper, that quiet sit here, still echoed inside my skull. Way too calm, way too patient, like it wasn't demanding anything. Just waiting for me to choose, waiting for me to come closer. Eventually I walked away, quick steps, didn't look back, didn't run, because somehow that felt like losing. But my skin crawled all the way home. And even in my apartment, lights on, doors locked, noise from the street outside, I felt unsettled. More than unsettled. Watched. The next night I told myself I wasn't going back to that park. Obviously. Normal people don't go back to a bench that talks. But 1 a.m. rolled around, 2 a.m., and I was still awake. Still pacing the floor, still hearing that voice in the back of my mind. Soft, steady. Sit here. I gave in, grabbed my hoodie, started walking, justifying it to myself the whole way. Maybe it was a trick of the wind. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe hearing it again would prove I'm crazy, and I could move on with my life. But that night, something had changed. I wasn't even close to the bench yet, still maybe 20 feet away, and I heard it again. Closer this time, right in my left ear. Closer. I stopped dead in my tracks. The air felt colder suddenly, heavier, like walking into a place you don't belong, like standing in someone else's home uninvited. Every step I took after that felt wrong, like I was being measured, watched, tested. And when I reached the bench, I swear, it felt like the old wood was warmer than it should have been. Almost like breathing, almost like expecting me. I stood there, waiting, listening, silence. Long enough that I started feeling stupid. Maybe that was it. Maybe it really had been nothing. Maybe, then I heard it. Soft, right behind my head, low. Almost playful, don't walk away. Every hair on my body stood up. And like an idiot, like someone in every bad horror story ever, I sat down. I told myself I just needed to prove it wasn't real, that it was nothing, that the worst thing that could happen was sitting on an old dirty bench for 30 seconds. The second I sat, something changed. The temperature dropped, the wind stopped, and then, right beside my ear, right against my skin, a sound I will never, ever forget. A low, soft laugh, giggling, amused, like whatever it was, had just won. I left the bench after maybe 30 seconds. Didn't say a word. Didn't look back. Just stood up and walked away like nothing happened. Like I hadn't just sat on something that laughed. Like I hadn't just felt cold breath curl around the back of my neck. Like that wasn't. But that night when I got home, something felt wrong. I kept glancing over my shoulder. Kept pausing at the sound of nothing. Kept feeling like the air in my apartment was heavier. More still. More expectant. Then at 3 a.m., just as I was finally starting to doze off on the couch, I heard it, soft, almost playful, almost patient, right beside my ear. You forgot. I sat bolt upright, heart racing. The room was empty. Of course it was empty, but the words echoed inside my head like they'd been carved there. You forgot. Forgot what? The next day, I didn't go to work, didn't sleep, didn't eat. I spent hours online, digging through every local forum, every urban legend thread, every cursed Reddit post I could find. Searching, park bench that whispers, haunted bench, bench won't leave me alone. Most posts were jokes, urban myths, stupid stories. But buried in a dead forum from 2012, I found one post. Simple title, The Waiting Bench. The rules were terrifyingly simple. If you sit on it, you have to say goodbye before you leave. It doesn't care what you say. Doesn't care if it's a whisper or a word or a wave. It just wants to know you respect it. If you forget, it remembers you, it knows you. And sometimes it follows. I read that part maybe 10 times. Follows? How can a bench follow anyone? It's just wood and rust and dead memories, right? But then I looked over at my sofa. The fabric was old, light grey, perfectly clean, always had been. Except now. There was a mark, a faint, dark, perfect stain. 2 long, parallel lines, exactly the width of the old wooden slats from that bench. Like something filthy, something damp, had been sitting there watching me sleep, waiting for me to come back. And the smell, faint, earthy, like old wet wood, like the park, like that bench. That night, I didn't even lock my door, I just walked, straight back to the park, straight back to it. And when I reached the bench, before I could even speak, it whispered, low, calm, satisfied. Took you long enough. That night, I did what I should have done the first time. I stood there in front of the bench, heart pounding, palms sweating, and I whispered, just loud enough for whatever was listening, goodbye. Simple, nothing fancy, just goodbye. The bench didn't move, didn't laugh, didn't whisper anything back. It just sat there, old, rotting, silent, like it had never spoken at all. Walking away felt different. The air didn't press against me like before. The weight on my chest lifted just a little. For the first time in days, I almost believed it was over. Almost. The next few nights passed quietly, too quietly. No whispers, no laughs, no marks on the sofa. No phantom stains or sounds or feelings of being watched. Just life again, normal, safe. Sleep came easier, dreams came back, the world felt right again. Until Thursday night, it started with a message. Anonymous, no name, no profile picture, just a phone notification glowing in the dark. Benches are everywhere, that's it, just those 3 words. Benches. Ah, everywhere. It was stupid, a troll, a leftover glitch from my brain still unwinding from the whole nightmare. I put my phone down, forced myself to laugh, forced myself to let it go until the next morning, when I stepped out onto my small apartment balcony with my coffee and saw it. A plastic chair, old, filthy, one of those cheap patio chairs that didn't belong to me, didn't belong to my neighbors, didn't belong there at all, but something had left it right in front of my sliding door, facing me, waiting. On the backrest, barely visible at first, scratched in crude, messy letters, "Sit here." That night, I barely slept, but not because of noise, not because of voices, because of silence. A silence that felt too patient, like whatever had whispered to me in that park didn't need the park anymore, didn't need old wood or rusty iron. It could be anywhere, any bench, any chair, any place I sat long enough for it to notice me again. Now I don't sit outside anywhere. Park benches, bus stops, public chairs, even my own balcony. Doesn't matter if it's plastic or wood or stone, because somewhere out there, something is still waiting, still whispering, still smiling in that slow, quiet, terrible way, waiting for me to sit down and forget to say goodbye, even once, just once. My name is Alex, and honestly, I never thought I'd be the type of person to tell a story like this. Not because I don't believe in weird things, but because weird things never really happen to me. I'm boring, routine, predictable. Every single weekday for the last 3 years, I've done the exact same thing. Work late, take the subway home, zone out, repeat. There's something weirdly comforting about an empty subway car at night, especially in this city. Everything feels quieter, slower, like time doesn't really matter down there. You're just sitting in this moving metal box, surrounded by strangers, everyone trapped in their own little worlds. And for me, my world was always the reflection. You know how subway windows turn into mirrors at night? Outside is too dark, inside is too bright. So instead of seeing tunnels and walls flying past, you just see yourself, your reflection, and the people sitting behind you. It became a habit. Every night, same seat, end of the car, next to the window, staring at the glass, watching, observing, little things, like the tired woman always scrolling her phone, the old man who dozed off before we hit the second stop, the guy with headphones bobbing his head to whatever track he was playing way too loud, familiar faces, familiar reflections, safe, until one night, there was someone new. It was late, later than usual. The car was nearly empty, just me, maybe 2 or 3 other people sitting far away. I leaned against the window, exhausted, watching my own reflection blur in the vibration of the train. And then I noticed her, behind me, in the glass. A woman, standing, motionless, right in the center aisle, directly behind my seat. I frowned. That didn't make sense. I hadn't heard anyone get on. I hadn't seen anyone standing, but there she was. Dark hair hanging loose over her shoulders, long black dress, head slightly down, still as stone. I turned my head slowly, heart already beating a little too fast. The aisle behind me? Empty, completely empty. No one standing, no one walking, nothing but old train floor and flickering lights. Swallowing hard, I turned back to the window, and my stomach dropped. She was still there, still standing, still behind me. Except now, just a little closer. It wasn't just the fact that I could only see her in the glass, it was her face, or what should have been her face, because where her eyes should have been was nothing. Just endless, perfect black. No whites, no pupils, just darkness. Watching me, waiting. That was the night I realized something I never wanted to believe. Not every reflection shows your world. Some reflections show theirs. After that night, I told myself not to look. Simple advice, right? If looking in the window showed me things I didn't want to see, then stop looking. Easy. Except it wasn't. Because when something looks back at you from the other side of the glass, you start to wonder if it's still there when you don't look. Maybe even worse when you don't. The next few days I tried everything to ignore it. Sat in different spots, stared at the floor, played music loud enough to drown out my own thoughts, avoided windows like my life depended on it. But curiosity is poison. It eats at you. Tiny thoughts like little claws scraping the back of your brain. Is she there tonight? Is she closer? Is she watching right now? Thursday night, I broke. I sat in my usual spot right next to the window. I told myself just one glance, just to see. just to prove she wasn't real. Big mistake. This time, she wasn't standing in the aisle. She was sitting, far down the car, way at the other end, still, silent. Face turned slightly down, those black, endless eyes locked onto mine through the glass, like she knew, like she'd been waiting. Every stop we passed, I risked little side glances, and every time, closer. Not walking, not moving in real space, just closer in the reflection, until the space between us was impossibly small, until her head was right beside mine in the window, until I could feel cold breath against my neck. Except there was no one there. Behind me, empty seat, quiet car, nothing but air. That night, I couldn't go straight home. My body refused to let me bring whatever that was into my apartment. I rode until the last station, empty, dead quiet. The whole car was still, lights buzzing above me, doors creaking open, and just before I stepped off the train, I glanced at the window one last time. I don't know why. Instinct, maybe. Regret, definitely. Because in that reflection, she was gone. Gone from the seat behind me. Gone from the far corner. But in the glass of the closing train doors, right above my shoulder, 2 words appeared, written in faint fog, like breath. Closer now. I didn't take the subway the next night. No chance. Walked home instead. 45 minutes through cold streets. Didn't care. Feet blistering. Legs numb. Way better than seeing her again. But it didn't work. Because when I finally got home, exhausted, freezing, I went straight to the bathroom, turned on the light, looked up, and nearly dropped dead. In the mirror. Right over my shoulder. She was standing there, head tilted. Those empty black eyes staring through me like I wasn't even real. I spun around so fast I nearly fell. Nothing, of course nothing, just me, alone, in my stupid bathroom, with the lights buzzing, and the mirror, fogging slightly from my panicked breathing. But in the glass, those eyes never moved, never blinked, never left. That was the moment I realized something horrifying. It wasn't the subway, it wasn't the train, it wasn't even the window, it was any reflection, any surface, any piece of glass, anywhere. I lost sleep for days, started avoiding mirrors, avoiding windows, computer screens, storefront glass, anything that could hold a reflection. But the world? It's full of reflections. Phones, water. Even my damn kettle on the stove had that faint curve of warped metal showing my face, and sometimes something else. Always just behind me, always getting closer. In full panic mode, I went online. Hours of searching, creepy forums, urban legends, old threads no one should ever take seriously. But buried in there, like a needle in the worst haystack imaginable, I found something. A story. Not exact, but close. Someone years ago had seen her too. Called her the black-eyed woman. Said she could only move through reflections. Said the more you look, the closer she gets. And worst of all, if you ever see her directly, without glass between you, without the safe distance of a reflection, it's already too late. Friday night. End of the longest week of my life. I sat on my bed, lights off, phone face down, every mirror covered, every window shut. Safe, or so I thought. Until I heard it, soft, right beside me, not from behind, not from glass, not from anywhere else, but directly next to my ear, a whisper, quiet, delighted. Look now. And against every screaming instinct, I turned, slow, dreading what I knew I would see. And there she was, sitting next to me. No reflection, no glass, no window, just her, face pale, eyes bottomless, closer than ever, real. I don't remember blacking out, I don't remember falling asleep. I don't even remember how that night ended. 1 second she was sitting there, right beside me, closer than anyone should ever be. The next, I woke up on a bench, alone, end of the subway line, dead quiet. Early morning light creeping in like nothing ever happened. Did I dream it? Hallucinate? Did I lose my mind somewhere between fear and exhaustion? God, I wanted to believe that. I really, really did. But when I got home, when I stepped inside my apartment, I knew better. Because the mirrors were uncovered, the windows wide open, and written on the foggy bathroom mirror. A sentence so faint I almost missed it. Closer now. After that day, I stopped using the subway, stopped walking near glass storefronts, started covering every mirror in my place with towels, old shirts, anything, just to feel okay, just to feel distance again. It worked, for a while. Weeks passed. No whispers, no eyes, no her. Life went back to something almost normal. But the world isn't built for people like me anymore. There are reflections everywhere, glass doors, dark windows, car mirrors, phone screens. Water puddles on the street after rain. Everything waiting, everything watching. I learned to avoid them, look down, move fast, pretend like I didn't notice the slight blur of motion just behind me in a reflection. Pretend like I didn't catch a glimpse of pale skin or endless black eyes pressed faintly against glass. Until yesterday. Walking home late, right before the corner store near my apartment. Big window display, dark, catching every light from passing cars. And there she was, not far away, not blurred, not vague, standing directly behind my reflection, closer than ever, closer than I could handle. And for the first time, she smiled, not cruel, not kind, just patient, like she had all the time in the world. That night I got a text. Unknown number. No contact, no name, just one line. She never leaves the mirror. But that's not what scares me most. It's not what's in the mirror. It's not even what's behind me. It's what happened this morning. Walking past the glass door of the coffee shop, catching my reflection without meaning to. Because for the first time since all this started, my reflection, it blinked, but I didn't. My name is Ryan, and honestly, it was just supposed to be a normal night. A casual little house party. Nothing crazy, just some friends hanging out, drinking, talking trash about work, laughing too loud like we always did. Safe, predictable, comfort. My place isn't anything special. Small townhouse, 2 floors. Pretty basic. Living room, kitchen, tiny backyard, stairs leading up to 2 bedrooms and a narrow little hallway upstairs. I've had people over 1,000,000 times. Never thought twice about it until that night. It was a Friday. The usual crew showed up. Mark, obviously, my best friend since college. Loud, funny, the kind of guy everyone feels instantly comfortable around. There was Jess, Tyler, Ben, same people, same vibe. We ordered pizza, played dumb drinking games, talked about nothing and everything. Felt good, felt safe. Mark was the first one to leave, not because he wanted to, but because he had some early morning family thing the next day. Classic Mark move though, complaining the whole way to the door. Bro, this sucks. Next time I'm crashing here. Yeah, I laughed, handing him his hoodie. Text me when you get home. Obviously. We did the handshake, shoulder bump, dumb little fake hug we always did, and I watched him walk out the door, watched him head down the front steps, watched him get in his car, headlights blink on. Car rolls down the street, gone. Nothing weird, nothing off. Just Mark leaving. The rest of us hung out for another hour or so. Cleaned up a little, talked about nothing. People started heading out one by one, until it was just me left. Quiet house, smell of beer and pizza still in the air, empty cups everywhere. I grabbed a few plates and took them upstairs to dump in the bathroom trash. Walking up those stairs like I had 1,000 times before, turning the corner into the hallway, and stopping dead in my tracks. There was someone standing at the far end, back turned, still, perfectly still. Broad shoulders, dark hoodie, jeans. Mark, it was Mark, standing there, alone, silent, in the dark hallway upstairs, like he'd never left. My brain short-circuited for a second, like some part of me glitched. Mark? I called out. No response, no movement, just stillness. But here's the thing. I watched Mark leave. I know I watched him leave. So who, or what, was standing in my hallway? Waiting. Silent, motionless. Exactly where Mark never should have been. I stood there for a long time, long enough for the silence to feel wrong. Not awkward wrong, not drunk friend messing around wrong, but dead wrong, like the air was thicker now, like breathing was a little harder, like the person or thing at the end of the hallway was waiting. For me. For something. I forced myself to speak again. Mark? My voice cracked a little. Still no answer, still no movement. Nothing. Just that shape, my best friend's shape, standing in a way Mark never would. Too stiff, too still. Like it didn't understand how humans are supposed to hold themselves. I took one step forward. The floorboard creaked beneath me, and in that tiny sound, like a trigger, the figure moved, not turning fully, just the smallest tilt of its head, like it was testing the motion. Slow, too slow, like bones unused to bending that way. My skin went ice cold. I backed up, step by step, careful, quiet. My heart hammering so loud I was sure it could hear it. I turned the corner and rushed down the stairs faster than I've ever moved in my life. Straight to the living room, straight to my phone. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type. Opened my camera app linked to the front door cam. Scrolled back, watched the footage. Watched myself say goodbye to Mark. Watched him get in his car, watched him drive away. Timestamp 1:12 a.m. Exactly when I thought, exactly like I remembered. Mark was gone, far away, and yet, whatever was standing upstairs was wearing his face. I stared up at the ceiling, listening. Nothing. But that kind of nothing that feels packed with sound. That kind of nothing that knows you're listening. I didn't sleep that night, didn't even sit down. Lights on, phone in hand. Watching the hallway like prey watches the dark. Waiting. Counting the hours until sunrise, like that could somehow keep me safe. When morning came, I called Mark. My real Mark. Half praying he wouldn't pick up because if he did, meant he answered on the third ring. Yo, what's up, man? His voice, real, normal, alive, just like always. I wanted to tell him everything, wanted to blurt it all out. But instead, all I could manage was, "Did you come back to the house last night?" Mark laughed. "What nah, bro? I was passed out like a rock. Didn't even check my phone until now." Silence. Sharp. Heavy. Painfully final. Whatever was standing upstairs last night was not Mark. And for the first time in my life, I realized there's something worse than seeing a ghost. It's seeing something that looks exactly like someone you trust, but moves like it forgot how to be human. The worst part wasn't seeing it. It wasn't even knowing it wasn't Mark. The worst part was realizing whatever it was hadn't left. The next night was brutal. Every sound in the house felt sharper. Creaking floorboards, pipes groaning. Even the hum of the fridge felt like it was crawling under my skin. But footsteps? No footsteps. Not this time. That almost made it worse. Like it knew I was listening, like it had learned. I didn't go upstairs, not even to brush my teeth. I stayed on the couch, back to the wall, eyes on the staircase. Watching, waiting. Phone in hand, flipping back through the security camera feed like some desperate proof that last night even happened. And then I thought of something. Stupid, obvious, but it hit me hard. The backyard camera, side angle, facing the back of the house, facing the stairs that led up to my second floor balcony. Facing nothing, usually. But when I scrolled back to last night, around 1:17 a.m., just 5 minutes after I watched Mark leave, there it was. Something, someone, standing perfectly still at the far corner of the backyard, facing the house, facing my window upstairs. At first I thought maybe it was a glitch. The figure was so still it barely looked real. But then the video glitched slightly and I saw it clearer. Shoulders, head, posture, all wrong. Too straight, too stiff. And worse, that hoodie, that same hoodie Mark had been wearing earlier, but hanging just a little off, like it was draped over a frame that didn't quite understand the shape of a human body. I stared at the screen for a long time, horrified. Because while the real Mark had driven off down the street, this thing had been standing there, watching, learning. And when it finally moved, it didn't walk, didn't turn. It just glitched, like a skipped frame in a video. One moment standing, the next moment gone, just like that. That's when it hit me. Whatever had been in my hallway didn't come from inside the house. It came from outside. It had waited, watched, copied, and then it got in, somehow. And then I remembered something that made my blood run cold. During the party, when everyone was still here, there was this weird moment. Mark, or what I thought was Mark, had just been standing in the kitchen, not talking, not laughing, just staring, watching me, watching everyone. Silent. Still, longer than felt normal. Way longer. And when Jess jokingly bumped into him and said "Earth" to Mark, he didn't laugh, didn't smile, just slowly turned his head like he was trying to remember how a person is supposed to react. That wasn't Mark. Not then. Not anymore. And whatever it was, it knew where I lived. It knew what I sounded like. It knew my friends. And worst of all, it knew how to wait. I moved out a week later. Didn't tell anyone the full story. Not even Mark. Not Jess. Not Tyler. What could I even say? Hey, so there was this thing standing in my house pretending to be you. Just standing there watching me like it forgot how people work. Yeah, no thanks. I found a new place. Smaller. Higher floor. No backyard. No creepy staircases. No weird dark corners for anything to wait in. Just walls. Safe. Empty walls. The first few nights were okay. Silent. I slept like a rock. Dead tired from moving. Dead tired from fear. Thought maybe, just maybe, whatever that thing was, stayed behind. Stayed with the house. Stayed with the version of me that still lived there. Until about 2 weeks later, Saturday, middle of the day, bright sunlight. Normal life. I was scrolling on my phone, standing in line at this tiny grocery store near my new place, just existing, until a weird thought hit me. Something I couldn't shake. Remember the security camera app? I still had it installed, still had access to the feed from my old place. No real reason to check it, but I did.